Welcome to Mav Sports Take. It is episode 80 here, your unmuzzled sports talk for everything business world and the inside workings of the NFL, CFL, pretty much every sports we cover a little bit here. But of course, we are football exclusive, bringing this inside look here. Of course, joining me on this inside look every single week is Mr. David Turner, who is an 18-year scouting vet across the NFL, CFL, and Arena League, including 3 straight Arena League championships with the Arizona Rattlers. We are deep in free agency now. We have seen just a massive deal a couple minutes before we got on here. We are recording, of course, on a Tuesday night. Teron Armstead just signed with the Miami Dolphins to a massive 5-year, $87.5 million deal for the offensive tackle over from New Orleans. We had Deshaun Watson over the last few days that me and David haven't talked about. Devontae Adams traded to the LA Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders. Oh my God, I'm going way back. Robert Woods being traded to the Tennessee Titans. Baker Mayfield saying goodbye on social media. Well, he's still on the roster for Cleveland before Deshaun Watson was even traded. David Ojabo injury during the pre-draft process at his pro day at the University of Michigan. So it has been a wild few days. And David this morning was like, U-turn. Let's take a quick pivot here because there is so much to talk about in this free agency, which, David, I mean, first and foremost, how are you, my friend? But also, crazy few days, man. Like you said, it seems like it's a little longer of a free agency process this year.
I've been doing this, like I said, 18 years, right? Before that, following it well before you were a twinkle in your father's eye, right? So I've never seen a free agency period where you have major deals like, Armstead's just tonight, this deep into free agency, franchise quarterbacks getting thrown around. I mean, tonight we were gonna our plan was to move on to the draft. Talk about draft process, some of the players. Just kind of what to look forward to. But with all going on and all the different landscapes to the different teams, I was like, you know what, Ryan, we got to do another show just to recap and recover on all this stuff because it's really insane how this has gone, and it's a new world that we're going to be involved in. But I just think this offseason, the last two have kind of been uneventful in my opinion. There's been a couple okay, deals or trades or whatever, but this year, blockbuster trade after blockbuster trade. It's just been amazing seeing quarterbacks from Wentz and Russell Wilson going, now Deshaun Watson going, and Baker Mayfield's on the trading block. We still have Jimmy G that possibly is going to go somewhere. We got Matt Ryan going in a day or so ago, going to the Indianapolis Colts. So it's just insane how all this is going on. Like, we got to do one more show on free agency and talk about it.
Yeah, pretty much what you just said, and I'm going to exemplify this in a couple words here. You don't want to talk draft, man. You just keep avoiding it. You just don't want to talk it anymore.
I'm not avoiding. I really thought this was the week we were going to turn the corner and just say, okay, this is with free agency done. What should we be looking for by certain teams and yada yada? That conversation, then start bringing the players on next week and start, getting everything lined up and turning that corner, turning that page for like the 6 weeks up to draft. But the NFL they just won't let us. They sucked us right back into free agency with all this going on.
David, I've been ready for 6 months to talk draft, man. You're still not ready, sir. You're still not ready. I even forgot about the Matt Ryan news because, I mean, his last few years have been kind of forgettable anyway. So he's kind of a forgettable person right now.
But think about putting him on the Colts now.
Well, don't get there yet. Don't get there yet because I have a quick ad read.
Okay.
Get into some of this news, okay? Would you be a parent of a high school athlete trying to make it to the next level? If you answered yes, then why not secure coaching from an expert? Here at Maverick Sports Consulting, we will work with high school athletes of all sports to create a strategy for their recruitment plan. With limited scholarships given each and every year, having a points recruiting plan helps our clients secure their opportunities to play collegiate sports. We focus on your transcripts, your film, leadership, and more to set goals and create pathways to get to them. Whether you're looking to attend an SEC school or Slippery Rock University, we can support your efforts to get to those goals for 2022. Contact us today at mavericksportsconsulting.com. All right, David. So I don't think there's really an order, right? Well, all right. So look, again, appreciate everybody out there in the Twitterverse, YouTube land, everybody that's watching live on TikTok, all that good stuff. So let's react to a little bit of newer news, David. Let's start there, right? Teron Armstead, like you said, I mean, he was the big name free agent that was left, right? We are at day 7 of free agency, right? 8, day 8, day 8, right? Because legal tampering started last Monday, right? So we're on
Last
day
Monday.
8.
Yeah.
So we're on day 8 of free agency, and finally, one of the biggest chips finally falls, goes to Miami for a 5-year, $87.5 million deal, David. And obviously, on the surface level, I think that's like $17.5 million a year, if my calculations are somewhat accurate there, which is a lot of money. Left tackle position obviously is a paramount one. You have to have a great player there. Miami Dolphins had arguably, well, in my opinion, so it is arguable, I guess. In my opinion, they had the worst offensive line in football last year. It was putrid, man. Like, just absolutely awful. So they signed Teron Armstead. Your immediate reaction, instant reaction to Teron Armstead signing with the Miami Dolphins?
Like I said, I can't believe someone else didn't offer him that kind of money, in order to get them to sign him. All right. And for the Dolphins to pony that up 8 days in, I'm always of the mindset when you're this far in the free agency, you don't have to pay top dollar for people because there just wasn't enough interest out there. Otherwise, they would have been scooped up in the first 3 to 4 days. Usually by the weekend, you're done with the big money, and big money is spent, and then you're moving on to mid-level. And then by this time, you're in, 1-year deals and trying to just get guys on the roster. And, it is what it is, and fill it out, and then turn the corner by this weekend for free agent or for the draft, and say, okay, how did we fill what holes? And then what are we going to now focus on in the draft? So to see this kind of big money get thrown this far into it, like I was saying, there's so many trades and big deals still happening. Freaking Devontae Adams set the market right with his deal for receivers.
Stop jumping ahead. Stick with me here, sir.
Well, again, was it a neat area by the Dolphins? Yes.
Absolutely.
Was it a great job to get this player in-house and ready to go? Yes. But is it a surprise that they threw the money this deep into free agency? Like, I personally probably would have offered him like a 3-year deal around 12.5 million, maybe 13, 14 million, just to get him on the roster for the next 3 years and then figure out the rest of it. But by giving him a 5-year deal at 17 per year, to me, that's a little bit heavy for this deep into free agency, because if that was the case, he probably would have had 2 or 3 of these offers sitting there coming out of that legal tampering period, but he didn't. You're 8 days in. So why are you throwing that kind of money now with this guy sitting there still 8 days in? So reaction to the deal, I think it's a great fill for them. Great hole fill. Got it. I think they overpaid initially. That's my reaction to the deal, hearing right before we came on what it was.
Yeah, I think it's an overpay as well for the reasons that you said to a degree, but also I think there's a couple other reasons that we need to talk about for a second. First and foremost, the Miami Dolphins needed to sign Teron Armstead because they need a guy at offensive tackle. Their offensive tackle unit, their offensive line unit is just bad in general. They signed Connor Williams from the Dallas Cowboys, who has had good spurts of play. I figure he'll be in at left guard most likely. So now they have a brand new left side with Teron Armstead. And hey, David, I mean, when Teron Armstead's played, he's been one of the best left tackles in the NFL for several years now for the New Orleans Saints. So if fills a need, they got a really good player. My biggest concerns, though, is that, he's 30 years old. It's not the biggest sticking point there for a second, but also he has never played a full season, right? Like, he's coming off a season where he only played in 9 games. He's missed, I think I put it on Twitter, it was like 48 games he's missed in his career up until this point. So, like, he's missed 3 seasons worth basically with just these nagging injuries. And I mean, there was the last few years, I think it was like 10, 13, 12, and then 9 this year. So like he hasn't been, he's been available for the majority of the season, but like, it's just, there's some reservation for me to give money in that degree to a player that is now hitting the age of 30 and has steadily just missed more and more time as a football player. Do you think I'm off base with that? Because like that's kind of like my
No,
immediate
not at all.
reaction.
And again, that's why I think the deals weren't sitting there for him out of the legal tampering process. And really quick, a question from TikTok. They want us to talk about Tom Brady coming back. So put that on the list somewhere on the show.
I don't want to do that, man.
I know
I
you
don't
know,
wanna
but
go.
the audience wants it. So we'll talk about that later. For me, I honestly, you know how I feel about injury history. I think that and character are two of the major drivers for me on the roster, because if you're committing that kind of money, 17 per, and the guys and we're now in 17 game seasons. We're not in the old 16 game seasons or anything. We're in 17 game seasons. It's going to be, how's he going to make it for 5 years? And then playoffs if they're trying to get there and stuff. So I don't understand it. Like I said, I might have done a 3-year deal, 12 million per, and gone from there, go from there. But that's that. I think it does address the need. If he's healthy, it does help them out.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right. So we had a request on social media. We're such a nice podcast. We're going to bump it right to the front, David. All right. We're going to bump it to the front. Tom Brady. So very weird series of events, right? Adam Schefter comes out, and we've talked about this before. He kind of steals the thunder from Tom and is like, he's retiring. And then Tom kind of goes back and says, like, oh, no, that's not official yet, so that he can kind of set his own way. And I think it was an Instagram post where he kind of renounced his retirement. And then just a couple weeks later, David, he's back, man. He just couldn't be gone too long. And feels a little reminiscent of Brett Favre to a degree, because I remember Brett a couple of times, man, was just like, I'm done. And then a few weeks later, he's like, just kidding, man. I'm coming back again. So, I mean, I don't care. I mean, he's a great player. I've gotten to the point with Tom Brady where it was like I hated him for a long time. And then I just got to a point where I'm like, I respect, obviously, the great player that he is. He's the best quarterback I've ever seen and probably the best quarterback to ever play the game. So, like, cool. But, like, I don't like the whole wishy-washy retirement thing. I feel like if you make the decision, you just kind of stick to the decision. But he's back, man. Can't get rid of him. He's like the boogeyman.
Well, again, I don't understand it. I'll be really frank. I don't think there was any rush for Tom Brady to announce a retirement by the Buccaneers. They weren't pushing him out the door. They weren't saying, "Hey, give us a decision in the next 2 weeks so we know what we're doing." Nothing like that. It was like, "Tom, take your time." So for him to go home, talk to the wife, talk to Giselle, talk to the kids, and be like, "All right, it's time for me to retire," and then just less than 2 months, I think it was like 6 weeks later, he goes, "Nope, I'm coming back for another year," right before free agency starts. And now, again, Leonard Fournette signed back, I believe, there today. I think other people are obviously wanting to stay and be part of it because he's there. But the reality is, man, I don't know. Like, that probably hurt him a little bit in free agency. Obviously, they had the one offensive lineman retire, thinking Tom wasn't coming back, and he was like, "I don't want to rebuild." So again, I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't even know why he's coming back. Being frank, he's won 6 titles. He's got all the rings, and I know you're only young enough to play once, so play as long as you can. I get it. But if your mind is already upfield about retirement, which he obviously has been thinking about it to the point where he announced his retirement, I've always said let those players go, because their mind's not 100% committed to what they're trying to do, and I just think let it go, Tom. Like, you should have just let it go. And I hope this season's a great season. I obviously root for the Bay Area guy, but at the same time, it's like, man, you probably should have just let it go and take a year and then figure it out, because if you really like retirement after year 1, you're always going to like it. If you don't, you know what, next year somebody would have been up his butt to go play for them. So
I'm going to say something, David. I want to know if you agree with this. I was more surprised that he retired after not winning a Super Bowl than I am that he returned in a couple weeks. I was more surprised about that. I didn't think he was going to leave after this year initially.
I didn't think so either, because they were balling. I mean, shoot, they were balling until Godwin got hurt, and then AB started to come on a little bit. So then they looked okay, and then AB did his freaking mental breakdown BS and left the field with his shirt off. So if they had AB that game against your team, the Rams could have been a whole lot different because it was a situation where that offense was ginning pretty good. But the injuries just caught up to him. The injuries did with Gronk and no AB, no Godwin. It just caught up to him. But again, I always root. I like Tom Brady. We're both Bay Area guys. Yeah. So, I'm going to root for him. And this year with the NFC having no quarterbacks really in it anymore besides him and Aaron Rodgers, because they all left and went to the AFC. I mean, it's going to be
Stafford, baby.
I'm sorry, Matt Stafford. I do love Matt. You know that. But, it was just we were talking pre-show. It's been a mass exodus of quarterbacks from the NFC to the AFC. So there's going to be some heck of matchups in the freaking AFC this year. There's going to be a lot, especially AFC West. There's going to be a lot of tight games. Those late games are going to have a lot of tight games coming forward this coming year.
Yeah, we don't talk about that Buccaneers-Rams game because the Rams were just like dominating the Buccaneers. They're like, just here, guys, you can stay in the game. Here's another dumb play, and we'll keep you in this game. And made it way more interesting than it had to be. David, let's go to the Deshaun Watson trade. All right, so Houston, it finally gets decided. Finally, after a little bit of a bidding war. So Deshaun Watson appears that he's going to be cleared of all the charges, all that good stuff. I don't want to really get too far into that, but Houston sends Deshaun Watson and a 2024 sixth-round pick to the Browns in exchange for first-round picks in 2022, 2023, and 2024, along with a 2023 third-round pick and 2022 and 2024 fourth-round picks. So that is a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 picks, I think, if my math just went that way. And Cleveland, in effect, also, David, inked Deshaun Watson to a 5-year, $230 million deal that is fully guaranteed. Fully guaranteed contract.
Where do you want me to start with this one?
I think we should save the contract to last, man, because when I saw it was fully guaranteed, I was like, brother. Let's start with, first and foremost, man, Cleveland very quickly was like, Baker, you ain't it, brother. We're going to the Mr. Deshaun Watson. There was a little bit of a bidding war, it seemed. It seemed like the Panthers were in it. Atlanta was in it, which was kind of a funky one for a couple days there. Ultimately lands with Cleveland. So let's just start with the trade in general, David. Your feelings on the trade, and maybe if either team you would call them a winner in the situation, you call them a loser. Like, I just want to hear we haven't talked about this, so I just want to hear your general feelings.
They're both boneheads.
Both.
Okay, both. So let's start with Houston, who I disdain. So you don't trade a quarterback like Deshaun inside your conference. I'm not even saying inside your division, but you make sure he gets out of the AFC. So all AFC teams should have been off the table, because now as you struggle and you go forward, and Deshaun's in the playoffs and Deshaun's winning, championships potentially, you're going to be compared to what you could have had if you kept Deshaun, and it just makes no sense. You always, just like what the Seahawks did with Russell, they traded him to the AFC. You don't keep him in your conference. You go outside your conference. It's just the way it goes. Matt Ryan goes to the AFC. You just get him out of the conference. You don't want to trade him to a conference divisional or any kind of, competition to get to the Super Bowl. That is asinine. Asinine. I don't care if they offered 2 more picks or an extra first rounder. You don't put them in the AFC. You make sure he goes to the NFC and kiss him on the cheek. Goodbye. See ya. Okay. That's first. Second, Cleveland.
Well, let's stop there for a second, because so the one good thing with Houston is that they did get a lot back for him. Now go.
Well, again, they got 7 picks for him, but what are they going to do with those 7 picks? Because again, but again, this year, right? The picks, there's potential to turn some things around, but quarterback's not going to be one of them, right? Next year, your own pick.
Well, are they going to be in the quarterback market, though? Because I think they might give Davis Mills a shot, because he played pretty well as a rookie. You're going to see the next level there, right?
Yeah, that's not going to work for him. I like Davis Mills. You like Davis Mills, but Davis
Yep.
Mills is not a franchise quarterback. He's just not.
We'll see.
Uh,
Okay.
and yeah, good luck. God bless it. I'll always root for a Stanford kid, but yeah, it's just not going to happen. I don't see it. So when I say that, you're not going to get the quarterback this year. You're not probably going to end up with a quarterback next year because there's only like two. And if the Browns win, that pick ain't going to be in high enough to get the quarterback of the future.
But they might have their own pick, and Houston might be very bad next year. So that's always on the table.
Houston's more than likely going to be bad next year, and I get that. And they'll probably have a revolving coaching door again and all that crap. Again, it's just why I don't like what they're doing down there at all. I don't understand it, and I don't try to wrap my head around it because I don't see it as successful. That pattern of what they've gone through has just not been a pattern I've ever seen in my career. That's a successful one. That's going to give them continued success. So, again, they got 7 picks for it. What you do with those 7 picks will dictate if it was a good trade for you or not. But my biggest issue is that you kept them in the AFC, where now let's just say you turn it around and you guys got a match up in the playoffs and then they beat you. Now you got, all that press and all that negativity about you had this guy and he wound up going and beating you. Because this guy is a talented guy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're not talking tonight about off the field issues and all the things. We're talking about him as a player, and he is an amazing player. And when he had Hopkins there, I mean, they were balling out. Those two had great connections. Now, up in Cleveland, I don't know what they're going to have for him, how they're going to surround him, because they gave up so many freaking picks for him, and then they committed so much money to him. I don't know how you put a team around him.
Well, they got Cooper, they got Nick Chubb, it's Kareem Hunt. It's they got some pieces, man. It's not
I get that for the short term, but again, they signed him for what? It's 235-year extension, right?
Yeah.
So he already had, I think he had a remaining 2 or 3 years on his deal, and now he's got an extension. So it's almost like putting 7 years on this kid, and Cooper's only going to be there 1 year probably, and then out next, unless he falls in love with Cleveland, which I haven't really heard that on the circuit, or people fall in love with the city of Cleveland too much. So again, I'm just saying, you don't have the draft picks. You're not going to have a lot of cap room over the career of this kid to surround him because of what you did. Not only give up the picks, but you gave up the cap room. And that's my problem with Cleveland. Did you go get a dynamic quarterback? You did. Did you get one of the best young quarterbacks that we've seen in the game? You did. But you've given up cap room and picks. That's going to limit your ability to surround this kid with offense and defensive weapons for his career, not just for the short term, but for the career. So therefore, I'll be interested to see how they do up there with that. If they would have just brought him in, didn't do the contract extension, but had, his current contract on there, I'd have been like, okay, at least they got cap stuff they can work, but they didn't. They kind of hurt themselves both places. So that's why I say they're a bonehead. They overpaid in draft picks, and then they also went and they hurt themselves with salary cap problems coming forward.
As you said earlier in the show, David, a lot of really good players have moved from the NFC to the AFC, right? So the next guy I want to talk about is Davante Adams, star wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, best receiver in the NFL, in my opinion, leaving for the Las Vegas Raiders, which sent a first and second round pick to Green Bay for the receiver. And in effect, the Las Vegas Raiders turned around and gave him a 5-year, $141.25 million, and which would make, I think you said this already, will make Adams the highest paid receiver in NFL history. So can we start with the Green Bay Packers here for a second, David? Can we start here? How pissed off is Aaron Rodgers right now, man?
Again, according to rumors, Aaron knew that if he signed his big contract, they weren't going to be able to afford to keep Davante past this year. And therefore, that made Davante vulnerable. And Aaron, the selfish son of a bitch that he is, went and took the money instead of saying no, like Matthew Stafford did. Mm-hmm. Matthew Stafford had a chance to make more money, but he said, no, put the roster together around me so I could have a better roster. Aaron didn't do that. He knows it's his last contract. He doesn't want to do a damn thing after he's done playing. So what did he do? He said, "Nope, give me my money grab. I'll take it." And then he got a contract where he can retire at any time too. So Aaron took care of Aaron, which is what Aaron's always been best at. So it is what it is. But at the same point, I just can't, I'm just not on board with what Green Bay did at all because I would have kept. Let's be honest, they did a smart thing. You get a first and second round pick. They were pretty good picks. Where they were for a player that's of his age. And again, you shipped him out of the NFC, so you're only gonna have to see him if and when you line up once every 4 years against these guys in a divisional matchup or in the Super Bowl, right? So that's how you do it. You get them out of the conference and you maximize what you can get for them. That's perfect. That's textbook. So, but I don't like that they now who's Aaron Rodgers going to throw to because this guy, pretty much amassed
Randall
90.
Cobb, Alan
Well, I'm saying
Lazard. Well, no,
that's
it's
what I'm
not
saying.
good.
Like
It's
I
not
love
good.
I love their young guys as role players, but this guy really amassed 90% of the receptions in the last 3 years for the Green Bay Packers overall. So, it's just a situation where I don't know what they're going to do. Now they have the draft picks. Again, they can draft, and there are some good receivers this year. I mean, we've talked about it. There are some good dynamic receivers. They'll have to fill that roster spot with one of those draft picks. So, we'll get into
Yeah.
that and we'll talk about it down the road. But I honestly think both teams won here. Whereas I call the last trade bonehead trades, I think both teams won here. I really think the Las Vegas Raiders, if Ruggs didn't go do what Ruggs did, would not have done this trade because with Renfro and Ruggs, they really had a good 1-2 combination working there, young guys working. But now they go get a veteran who's dynamic, who catches everything, and his catch radius is huge. Derek Carr is famous for overthrowing. This is a guy who can make adjustments, who can do different things, make your quarterback look better than he is. So this is a great pickup. You put him with Renfro, and now in the draft somewhere, just find a speed receiver. I think this is really going to be, really going to be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and they had they also have Darren Waller, who's one of the best pass catching tight ends in the NFL as well. And David, I think Deshaun Watson's still not Deshaun Watson, Deshaun Jackson is still on that team. And I know you love Deshaun Jackson. He cried his way out of a ring in LA, but we'll talk about that to another degree at some other point. I do really like, just from a fit perspective though, because we didn't even talk about it. Devontae Adams and Derek Carr they were college teammates at Fresno State, right? So they have a rapport already in place. I really do like mixing him in with Renfro. Renfro had the quietest 100 catch, 1,000-yard receiving season like ever, dude. Like, did anybody talk about that? The fact that dude had 100 catches this year, like it was pretty insane, man. So I like the fits. Obviously, you make him the highest paid receiver in the NFL. We'll see how much of that was. I don't think that it was just because of Aaron Rodgers, because Devontae Adams is a pristine route runner, great hands. So, I'm not saying that he was a product of Aaron Rodgers, but there is going to be an adjustment to the fact that Derek Carr is a good player, but he's not Aaron Rodgers, right? So, there is going to be some.
No, but I'll be honest. Look at what the Raiders are doing. Okay, Ziegler, I didn't know what he was going to be as a GM. Josh obviously is coming into a second time as a head coach. We're a little familiar with his offense. Renfro with Adams and Jacobs
and Waller
are that in itself in Josh's system is going to be really an amazing. I think that offense is.
Their offensive line sucks.
Yeah, their offensive line is terrible. Don't get me wrong. Offensive line is terrible. But I'm saying the weapons now on offense are pretty legit. And then they go and get one of the better pass rushers, I thought, in free agency, right? In Chandler Jones. Mm-hmm. And they've been doing some really good work for that roster there in Vegas. I'm excited to watch this Vegas team line up and play. I think the whole division's been doing a lot of work. So I think it's going to be a very competitive division. But I like what I'm seeing out of Ziegler and this young, scout Champ Kelly, who came down from Chicago's there and stuff. So I'm really liking, what they're doing up there. And I text the guys this weekend. I said, man, you guys are really putting in some great work. So, I like what they're doing there. And I think in this situation, in this trade, both teams won.
Hmm. Yeah, the AFC West is going to be fascinating to watch, man. Obviously, the Chiefs have run that division, but now the LA Chargers look like they're making the step. The obviously Russ to Denver is a big move there, and then Las Vegas got a little better as well. So we'll see, man. It's going to be interesting. We're going to talk second half of the show here. A little bit of the Robert Woods trade. I might cry on that one. Robert Woods trade, the Baker
Me too.
Mayfield saga, and a little David Ajabo injury, and talk a little bit about the draft process for the injury side of it, which is the terrible part of the process. Before we do that, though, have you secured any sponsorships with your name, image, and likeness yet? No. What's keeping you from earning money or gaining products today? Probably access to companies. Maverick Sports Consulting can connect these dots for you. We believe in the power of athletes making a living off of their likeness while going to college. If it's simply that you don't have access to companies, don't let that keep you from being successful. Contact us at Maverick Sports Consulting so we can help you navigate your pathway to corporate sponsorships for your collegiate career. And athletes' earning potential is limited. Why wait until tomorrow to start earning today? It doesn't matter what sport you play. We help our clients achieve their goals. Just contact us at Maverick Sports Consulting. TikTok, the clock is ticking. So, David, I know, I told this one before the show, and you have just been so lost in free agency, man. You didn't even know that Robert Woods was traded to the Tennessee Titans. David, sad day for one, right? I felt so bad for Robert Woods because obviously he was starting to really turn it on when he got injured because it was Cooper Kupp show. Then he had another couple nice games in a row, and then he gets injured, right? And he misses obviously the full rest of the season. He misses the playoff run. He misses the Super Bowl. I felt so bad because Robert Woods has been instrumental to that team turning it around under Coach Sean McVay. He's been a leader of that team. I told you though that the minute, and you texted me when they signed Allen Robinson from Chicago, and you said like, oh, how many receivers do they need? I knew because I had heard a little insight that Robert Woods was going to be on the trading block, and it was that was just going to be a thing. So they have now Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, who I like Allen Robinson a lot. So like I was good with it because he's a really good player. You have those two. You have Van Jefferson, and Odell might be coming back, maybe, but he might not be available until November, even if he resigns. So who knows what's going to happen with Odell? So they end up trading Robert Woods to the Tennessee Titans. This was the one that got me, David. I put it on Twitter. I was so upset. They traded him for just a 2023 sixth round pick. It was basically a salary dump. That was all it was at this point. I think the Tennessee Titans are taking on the full of the contracts. So there's like no dead cap on the Rams end, all that type of stuff. But they're basically just getting rid of the contract at that point because you didn't even get a sixth round pick for this year. Like you didn't get anything out of it. So a 30+ year old receiver who's coming off of a torn Achilles, which is obviously a terrible injury. There's sides to it, and I get it. And the contracts, like I understand it completely. I would just say this, and I'll let you go kind of full tilt on both sides of it. Sad day as a Rams fan. Like, it really was because, again, I respect so much of Robert Woods has done for the organization. I get it, though, from a business perspective. I understand why it happened. I wish him the absolute best. I think he brings a nice layer to that Tennessee offense that kind of needed a second wide receiver target outside of A.J. Brown, who's a dynamic weapon. So I think that the Tennessee Titans get a really good player. Unfortunately, the Rams have to depart with a guy that's been instrumental to their success. That's just kind of my 2 cents on the situation.
Yeah, I'll be honest. These are the times when the business decision makes sense, but the football decision sucks ass because it's a situation where, like you said, Robert Woods was instrumental in that organization's progress where it is and was really an instrument to the success of this offense in this year. I know Cooper Kupp was having a heck of a year. Well, it's because Robert Woods on the other side, was taking attention. If you ever overcommitted to Cooper Kupp, Robert was making you pay for it. So that being said, there was a couple weeks there when Odell was transitioning, when that offense sputtered a little bit, and then Odell came on, and that role was filled. Allen Robinson, I think, fills that role perfectly. What he does is a perfect compliment. again, all the business decisions in this process here, in this move, makes sense. It just sucks because I like Robert Woods and I wanted to see him come back healthy and play for the Rams again and compliment Cooper and make a run with them and really be able there. Because even on the championship game, like, man, he was crying, and I
Yep.
think it was Cup and him were hugging, and they were telling him how much of the process he believed that he should be, involved and celebrate the success, even though he didn't help him win that one game or the Super Bowl. Um, so I feel this one. I feel this one, and it does suck because I like Robert a lot. I think he's a fantastic individual, and I hope he goes to Tennessee and he does great things there and makes the Rams kind of eat their words on this one, even though the business makes sense. Like, understand,
Yeah.
this is a business. You have to make business decisions. The business of it makes sense. These are the ones that suck. And I've had
Yeah.
to make these type of decisions and they suck.
Yeah, man, I totally get it. Again, I hope that Robert Woods does really well out in Tennessee. Like I really do. I'm not spiteful at all. It's just an unfortunate circumstance. And it's the shitty part of the business. Like, let's just call it what it is. I will say this though, David. I do think, and I would love your like input on this. So Cooper Cup, right, is obviously an intermediate separator. He kind of rules the middle of the field. He's like a slot guy, right? Robert Woods, in a lot of ways, is also the same type of player. Like he is a separator as a route runner, and he really dominates the middle of the field. I really do like the Allen Robinson layer to the offense because they haven't really had the outside the numbers back shoulder, vertical stretch type of player. Like they haven't really had that type of dude that can win kind of those 50-50 contested catches. So I do like that how Allen Robinson does complement Cooper Cup. Like I think that it does make a lot of sense from a schematic perspective, if that makes sense.
No, the Allen Robinson signing to me with Cooper Cup, and if they'll find a young receiver in the draft, maybe or something. I mean, somewhere in when they have a pick, might be in the fifth, sixth round somewhere. But again, I think they have some issues that they have to address. Obviously, they need a left tackle better now. They need to find better another receiver to fill in there with Woods not being there, and then like you said, OBJ not coming back right away. So they need to find. I mean, again, Jefferson's a good player. I hope they give him the ball some more. I really like him as well. So, but I think they need another young, dynamic receiver somewhere. And they are. This draft is pretty loaded. They might find a guy deep that can bring some value to this offense right away and grow within certain roles. So I like it. Like I said, all the way around, this makes sense to me as far as a business decision. And Allen Robinson adding that layer, I think, is going to be, especially in Sean's hands. I mean, Sean's so creative. It's going to be a bonus for that offense.
Yeah, and I think the Rams, from what I understand, is they have signed Joseph Noteboom, who filled in for he had filled in for Andrew Whitworth at left tackle when he went down injured. He did a really good job, and he's a younger player that they drafted, I believe, in like the third round out of TCU a few years ago. So I think that's kind of who they have said as the guy to take over at left tackle. We'll see. I hope they get him a little bit of competition in the draft, but hopefully he's able to. I mean, obviously, there's a massive shoes, and you're not going to just replace Andrew Whitworth, but let's hope that he does an admirable job at least at worst. So, moving on now to one of the last bits of news, David. Baker Mayfield saga, man. Obviously now, right? You're looking at it, and you're like, okay, they get Deshaun Watson, like he's out. But even before it happened, man, I don't know if he had some like insight that like, hey, this is probably going to happen, or like we're going to be in the contention or whatever. He posts on social media basically goodbye to Cleveland days before the trade with Deshaun Watson happens, and he's requested a trade. Very bizarre kind of timing of everything. I don't know if he had a little bit of insight, but Baker Mayfield seems like he will be playing football in a different city in 2022, but it doesn't look like the market's great right now, David. It looks like because I think the Panthers have already said, like, now we're not interested. So you're starting to run out of teams that may need that quarterback, unless you're talking about maybe the Seattle Seahawks. Like, I don't know what the next step is for Baker Mayfield. It's a little bit of a cloudy situation, in my opinion.
Well, again, here's another bonehead organization doing the same bonehead crap. So, you got the Cleveland Browns who took Baker Mayfield #1 overall over Josh Allen, which was the biggest mistake in the history. When you're going through the draft process, it made no sense back then, and obviously it makes no sense now because Josh is just went toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes and should have won that game if that defense would just run a freaking four cloud. That game would have been over and no big deal. But no, they can't. They got to run a two-man and freaking screw themselves. But anyways, um, that all being said, now you're trying to correct the mistake with a again god awful or not god awful, a gaudy trade. It's obviously a gaudy trade and signed contract, making the push that we're going to be paying this quarterback $237 million for like next 8 years, whatever it is. And now what do we do with this other guy? See, a football guy would, if a football guy was in control of the Cleveland Browns, you would have had a trade for Baker and in the works done while you were working on the trade for Deshaun. You know what I mean? It would have been like a day before Baker's gone. Next day we got Deshaun. So you get rid of the quarterback, you get hit with press one day, but then the next day your guy's here. Now you got two guys in the building. One guy who obviously is requesting a trade doesn't want to be there. You got press talking about that on top of what you're trying to do, which is good press for the new guy. So again, bad decision making and understanding how to do this process. Plus, that takes the value of Baker away because now everybody saw what you traded away to get Deshaun, so they know how anemic you are in picks, right? And they know that this guy doesn't want to be there, so therefore it lowers his value. So what your return on investment here from a first overall pick is going to be very, very little, if anything. And or you hold on to him and you got his contract on your salary while you're trying to, pay Deshaun for playing. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. The way they handled it was a bumbling freaking Keystone Cop situation style decision making. So, for me, if you look at it, yeah, Baker could go to Seattle. He could ultimately, again, don't take the Saints off the table. I wouldn't take the Falcons off the table. Apparently Kyler and the Cardinals have kissed and made up, but I haven't seen official stuff where Kyler is really, really happy with them. Okay. So, I think there's about 4 or 5 teams that Baker Mayfield could be in play for as the draft comes up. We'll see who starts making a play for him. And again, Jimmy G is still sitting there at the Niners, who to me is another one that what's going to happen with Jimmy G. You don't foresee Jimmy G going back and playing for the Niners or even being on that roster, but yet now the Commanders have made a trade for a quarterback. You have other teams that have made their trades, like again, uh, Denver's made their trade for their quarterback. Indianapolis has made their trade for their quarterback. So Baker's market and Jimmy G's market is sewing up pretty easy here, or pretty lean. It's getting pretty lean.
Yeah, and one of the teams that are off the list, obviously, you just mentioned a little bit. Matt Ryan gets traded to the Indianapolis Colts, David, for a third-round pick, right? Just a third-round pick. I expected it wasn't going to be anything crazy as far as like how much you were going to get back from Matt Ryan, just because I think he's already 36, right? He's coming off of kind of a up and down couple seasons. He's been a good player, but he's not obviously as good as he used to be. And I mean, Atlanta had very little leverage, man. Like they made it very well known that like they're shopping him. So you kind of shot yourself in the foot because it's just like they're probably going to try to get rid of him in some capacity because he was due a big roster bonus, right? So you knew that there was going to be some decision making there. I mean, first and foremost, I like the move for Indy because it's not giving up much for an upgraded quarterback, but like I feel like they're just doing the same revolving door, man. Because like they had Philip Rivers a couple years ago. I liked Philip, but like he was near the end. Carson Wentz thing didn't work out, and then you get another quarterback that's near the end. I'm very like lukewarm on both sides of this deal. I like it for Atlanta at least to get that contract off your hands, even though David, I saw $40 million dead cap hit off of that contract, though.
Yeah,
they have to pay.
that's what I was about to say when you were talking. I was like, they're still getting 40 million dead cap hit. They only gained 8 million off that, so it wasn't 48 million. Oh, wow. You're still paying $40 million. At 48 for only a third round pick, I might have kept the guy and let him play one more year because I know 8 million sounds like a lot, but in the cap era, like that's not that much for giving up a franchise quarterback. Now you go sign Mariota, who again has been a backup for a couple years. He's not that impressive. I mean, I think he's going to fit in the Arthur system pretty well because he's athletic. They'll move him around a little bit more. Think more like how they play up in Tannehill, up in Tennessee when Arthur was there. So I think that'll work for them. But again, the Colts need to draft the next young quarterback for that organization. It's not probably going to be this year's draft because this year's draft doesn't have the stellar class that we were thinking it might have. There was a couple guys early in the draft process that we thought might, be guys, but I don't know if they've really proven to be guys this senior year. So next year there's only a couple guys. So I think the quarterback market is very lean, and what you're seeing there in Cleveland is as Chris and Dodds put together a very good overall team, but they just missing the key piece, which is quarterback, which when they took over, I'm pretty sure they still had Andrew Luck. So they thought they were going to have that guy. So they started building around that piece, and then Andrew took off on them. So, they're like, wow. And they've been trying to fill it ever since. When they signed Rivers, I thought they were going to sign Teddy Bridgewater instead, but they went with Rivers. Rivers gave him a year. And then, when they traded for Wentz, everybody knows how I feel about that, who follows the show. And so, therefore, they're in this situation. I like the Matt Ryan signing for them. I think they need to address receivers. I think they will this year. They'll get Matt a few receivers, some dynamic players. And I think Matt would have had a much better season this year if he had Ridley on the field with the tight end, and that whole situation that they were trying to build down there was complete. But these young receivers have been doing some bonehead things and getting out of control. So, again, Matt Ryan he's a serviceable, very good quarterback, but when you have Jonathan Taylor running the ball, you're behind that offensive line they built and a very good defense, a technically sound defense, in my opinion. I think this team's really got to move up the chart, the betting charts for what's for the Super Bowl. That being said, the AFC is loaded with quarterbacks and people that are trying to compete for that spot in the Super Bowl. I mean, from like you said earlier, you got Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes, you got Derek Carr and Russell Wilson. Now you got Matt Ryan, you got Herbert, you have who else is if Kyler or not Kyler, you got Herbert and I'm forgetting one.
Lamar Jackson,
and now you got Watson up in
Joe Burrow.
Cleveland. Joe Burrow. God, how can I forget Joe Burrow? I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm at 9 or 10 guys here, and they're all in the AFC. So, like I said, the NFC is a little leaner in the quarterback department right now. So, you might see the AFC's competitiveness really fly up the charts here.
Yeah, no, it could happen, and I like how you said betting odds, and I just remember, man, we didn't even talk about the Calvin Ridley situation, but we'll save that because I think there's
so much to talk about, man.
I know, man. Well,
and we got to get to the last segment here because I think it's a really important one. So
yeah,
it's been crazy. It's just unbelievable headline after headline after headline.
Well, and I think that we should do a whole show just devised for gambling and sports because like we can go so many different layers because obviously we say football, but like we can talk about McGonaghy, right, was his name, the guy that was reffing NBA games, right, and betting on the games and fixing the games, all type of stuff. And like, I mean, there's been guys that have, I mean, Pete Rose obviously is a guy, but like
Josh Shaw
a few years ago, right? So yeah. I think I've been talking.
We'll do a show on it. We'll do a show on it.
It's a good idea. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Put that in the memory bank, David. But the last thing we wanted to talk about, we're going to talk a little NFL draft, just a little bit, not any analysis, just a key thing that happens, right? Michigan had their pro day, star pass rusher, David Ajaba, who's from right here in New Jersey, by the way, David. He went to Blair Academy in North Jersey. Very talented player, had a breakout season along with Aiden Hutchinson, double-digit sacks, entered the draft early. No, I know his trainer that he's working with, the pass rush specialist out there in California, who's a great guy, Eddie. And unfortunately, man, David Ajabo is projected to be maybe a top 10, top 15 type of pick, top 20 at worst. Definitely a first round lock, though, in my opinion. Fortunately, David, during a change of direction drill, and it's like a linebacker drill, he tore his Achilles. And that it's the tough part of the draft process, right? Because we are nearing the end, man. That's like, well, not the last step because you're still going to meet with teams and all that good stuff, but like on field wise, that's the last step to this process. You've gone through the combine, you did all that good stuff, you're working out the pro day, and unfortunately, David, a non-contact torn Achilles, which if it was an ACL, I think I would feel a lot different, but Achilles are tricky, man. It's gotten better obviously with, in the medical world and the science behind it, but I mean, Achilles still give me a little bit of pause personally.
Yeah, I honestly think we saw we saw agents this year when the NFL wanted to bubble the combine. Literally 15 agencies, I think, got together and said, if you put the kids in a bubble away from their trainers, away from us, they can't come out and talk to us. Our trainers can't stretch them out and they can't work them out, get them ready for the combine workout. We're just not going to let our kids work out. They just came together and said, we're not going to let our kids work out. We're not going to do it. And within 3 days, the NFL scratched that and said, we need that content. We need those kids on the field, working out. We need that film. So they scratched that and they got their way. I think you're going to see a very similar thing moving forward because we've seen way too many players either at the combine or at pro days get major injuries. And I think, with college players, if they play the full season, not the bowl games, but there's enough film work to where you can be like, all right, this kid can do what you need him to do. Like, go watch 4 years of film or 3 years of film. And if you can't prove in 3 years of film that he can do what you need to do, what's this one bag drill going to prove? Like, being honest, what is it really going to prove? Is it going to make you feel more secure to take him at the 15th pick overall? Well, then move back and take him at the 22nd. You know what I mean? Like, it just is what it is. So, for me, when I look at it, I'm just like, we got to do better because we can't cost these kids draft pick position. And, the owners went and negotiated a situation where the draft pick position is slotted like the NBA. So what you make is based on where you get picked. And so now this kid who was a first round pick, and Ryan can tell you is probably top 15 or at least top 20 pick, was going to make really good money. Now he tears his Achilles. People aren't going to take him in the top 20. And that's a guaranteed 5-year contract pretty much in the first round. And second through the rest are 4-year contracts for a lot less money.
Would you not take him in the first round altogether, or would you consider it later in the first?
I probably wouldn't take him in the first round unless the pass rushers got absolutely decimated, because this year's pass rush, class is pretty deep. If I'm in the market for a pass rusher, I want immediate impact with that first round pick. And a guy like this is a definite year rehab, right? Is going.
That seems to be changing a little bit. I mean, Cam Akers got back from his torn Achilles in 6 months. Like, I don't know, man.
But
it's tough.
That's
it's
also
tough.
a running back, and there. You know what? I'm not going to go there. I think that when you have a guy who's battling in the trenches and getting pushed on, and another man 300 pounds is going to hit him and push on that, those legs at ankles are going to be really hard. And as a guy who had ankle surgery not too long ago, ankles are really tough, and Achilles and stuff are really tough because of where they are located with the swelling and with the, it's just, they're really tough. And therefore, if you come back too fast from an Achilles and you wind up popping it a second time, I mean, you might as well kiss it goodbye. And that's not something you want to push. So let's just say he's not a full year out, but they don't get him back till week 7 or something next of the season. As a first round pick, that you're getting 10 games out of him, so there's some value, right? Rookie year, all that stuff. But I think it's very hard for a team, unless you're in the 28 to 32 range, to take him in the first round, unless you don't think you can get him in the second. You know, and that's just the way it is. I mean, some teams might take them all completely off the board till the third round. They might be like, you know what, we can't take him because we need the value of those first 2 picks to be playing for us day one.
Yeah, we've seen a couple examples. I think back to Sidney Jones that came out of Washington, the Eagles. They ended up getting him in the second round. He didn't pan out as a player just in general, but I think he also tore his Achilles. Jeffrey Simmons coming out of Mississippi State hurt himself as well at the pro day, and he fell. I mean, he still I think was like the 18th pick. So, but they were talking before that about him being maybe like a top 5 to 7 type of player. Then he ends up going 18th. So have seen a little bit. It's a very unfortunate circumstance. We're going to wrap it up on that note. I'm going to give David Turner the final word here in a second, but I want to thank everybody who has taken the opportunity to listen to Mav Sports Take tonight. If you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, please hit the 5-star, hit a review, share this podcast, let people know how much you love it. Give us the nice little 5-star rating would be very much appreciated. So David Turner, final word of the day. Final word of the night. As always, my friend, what is on your mind?
Well, in the world that we're living in right now, there's so much going on, and it's so crazy. We got history being made at the Supreme Court hearings. We got a war going over in Europe. We got, just so much every day in our lives. I just want to thank our listeners, everybody around, to come listen and just kind of decompress a little bit here on Mass Sports Take. Have some fun talking about the excitement of a sport that I'm in love with. I have passion with. Ryan obviously does. And we get an opportunity to, answer questions live from TikTok, from, Twitter, from Facebook, or everywhere we're at. And I just think that's just an amazing technology that we have these days, where we can get questions, answer them, put our 2 cents on, and people listen to us, because I know I needed this tonight with everything that I got going on in my world, with all my family duties and my daddy duties, as I call them, and then my work duties and everything. This was really fun to come on and talk about what an exciting period of free agency, and how much hope all these different teams have been putting themselves in position to win with. So I'm excited for them. I'm excited to keep talking about it, and trust, next week we will be turning our eye forward down to the draft. Ryan's going to line up some great young players to come talk about it. We're going to talk some draft strategies, and we're going to talk more about what teams still need to fill. We're going to work through the conferences and talk a little bit about them all the way up to the draft. So thank you, Ryan. Thank you to the listeners. Thank you to everybody, because I really look forward to this hour each and every week.
Yeah, man. NFL draft, full sights ahead. David cannot avoid it anymore. Appreciate you all. See you. Same time, same place next Tuesday night.